Down to business right here. You win, you're getting further on in the tournament. You lose, and you're going home. I mean, it's getting down to the finals, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, we are into the single elimination portion of the varsity format, so we can go ahead and check out the road that these teams have taken to get here so far with the varsity format and the road that they will continue to drive up until we get to that final stage. So, they were initially split into 4 round robin groups, and the top 4 teams from each region competed then in the varsity playoffs, which happened off stream. The top 4 teams from each region were put into dual elimination groups, where the top 2 teams from each region then advanced to the varsity finals, which is where we are today. The teams are competing in a single elimination bracket. There are 8 total teams. The top 4 will be qualifying for the championship bracket, which is where they'll meet up with the open division teams. But we are going to be playing it out to find a winner, because the finals winner do receive invites to the Hearthstone Masters Tour Las Vegas event. So that's very exciting. We're going to be finding out who those players are today.
Yeah, we're down to your final 8 varsity teams, but we also have to remind you that we do also have the open format as well. In the open division, these teams are split up into the north, south, east, and west regions. All teams with a 5-2 record or better advanced on to the regional Swiss, and then the top 8 teams advance to the playoffs, in which the top 3 teams will then advance to the championship bracket and meet up with our top 4 varsity teams to come up with that championship bracket.
And of course, we need to know how they're going to be playing the game, and that is through the Conquest format. Pretty standard stuff. Each team have submitted deck lists for 4 unique classes. They will then proceed to ban 1 class from their opponent's lineup. Teams will then play in a best-of-5 series. They get to choose their deck each game, and when a deck has won a game, you can no longer select it. So the first team to win with all 3 of their decks will be the winner of the series. And we can go ahead and look at the teams that have made it to the varsity finals and the teams that are going to be playing here today. Why don't you go ahead and break it down for us, Jace?
So we see match 1, our first match of the day is going to be Oregon versus Kent State. Match 2, one of my favorite teams, George Mason taking on Jamestown. Match 3, Northeastern, who we've seen take a tear through the varsity bracket so far, taking on UC Irvine. And match 4 with Southern New Hampshire University taking on University of Miami of Ohio. So we've got some great teams so far. A couple of these teams I am really excited to see play tonight, Cora.
We're going to be seeing all 4 of these matches today. That's right. We've got one more match than usual for you, which is why we're starting a little bit earlier today. And then tomorrow it's going to be the 2 semifinals and the final match, kicking it off at our regular time, which is 5 p.m. Pacific. But today we're going to be seeing all of the quarterfinal action go down. And now we can start to take a closer look at what these teams are going to be receiving for all of their work. It's a lot of scholarship prize money, $9,000 in scholarships per player for first place. Second place is $5,000. Third and fourth place, $2,500. Fifth through eighth place, $1,300. Ninth through sixth place, $650. And 17th through 36th place will be going home with $200 ACES tablets per player. And it's really important because none of this would be possible if it weren't for our generous sponsors from ACES Republic of Gamers. So thank you so much to ACES ROG for sponsoring this season of the Hearthstone Collegiate Championships and allowing us to put on this show for you for the last 7 weeks now. It's been a nice constant in our lives, and hopefully you've been enjoying it too.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. It's kind of gotten into the habit of just, traveling here to Burbank and, having these broadcasts. It's been it's going to be bittersweet to leave the Swiss rounds, but we've got some finals that we've got to crown some victors. So.
We do. We've got the varsity bracket today. We're going to be back actually celebrating Easter with you guys for the open division finals in a couple of weeks. And we want to know, who are you rooting for? Who do you want to see taking home that $9,000 per player scholarship prize for first place? Tweet at Team Tespa. Go on Facebook/Team Tespa and ask us questions, because we want to be giving away Dollar on Flame card backs. So if you tweet questions to us at Team Tespa, we'll be able to pick a couple at the end of the show today and tomorrow and give away those Dollar on Flame card backs. And I know with Rise of Shadows being released now in just 2 days, you guys have to have questions. We would love to answer them for you. And we actually do have something special going on today. It is the format that you know very well by now as far as this Hearthstone meta, but we have the inclusion of Archmage Vargoth, because he was released early and everybody who logged in to the Hearthstone client was given a copy of Archmage Vargoth for free. So we are going to be seeing him included in actually a wide variety of decks over the course of today. So I'm excited to see how that's going to go. But before we get into that, we do have to take a look at our ACES Republic of Gamers play analysis. And this is going to be coming to us from a match from last week, I believe.
Yeah, this is a bit of a risky play from DePaul University. They go for the Doomguard. and then they decide to life tap. Now, life tapping here would lead to them dying unless they found the Dark Pack. So it was very important for them to find the Dark Pack to keep them in the game, but I really had wished that maybe they didn't life tap. They know that there's no much burst damage in a deck like Big Mage, so the most they would have been able to do is fit in their hero power for 4 damage, and they would have still been alive at 1 health. Maybe if they top deck that Dark Pack for next turn, they go Possessed Lackey, Dark Pack to Lackey, maybe get another Doomguard out, maybe they can start to get themselves back in the game. So they did stay in the game, but it felt like the Dark Pack was used for basically nothing when the Doomguard may have just been able to sit on the board if they just didn't life tap.
And that was actually the start of the comeback right there for Notre Dame. They were down 0-2 going into game number 3, and they ended up getting that reverse sweep once their big mage was finally able to take a win. They were able to kind of bully that Cube Warlock a little bit from DePaul, so congrats to Notre Dame on advancing from that series, and we'll be seeing more from DePaul in the next season of this tournament, I'm sure. But let's go ahead and take a look at our first match of the day. It's going to be University of Oregon taking on Kent State University. Here we've got Paladin Rogue Warlock with a Hunter band. And from Kent State, it's Hunter, Paladin, Priest with a Warrior band away. I'm sure you're happy to see the Warrior band, Jay.
Well, the Warrior band makes sense because I'm looking at University of Oregon's lineup right now, and it is very aggressive. I'm looking at an even Paladin. I'm looking at a Pirate, Faldori Strider, Rogue, whatever you want to call it. I'm looking at a mid-range Hunter, and I'm also looking at a Zoo Warlock that tops off at Mojo Master Zihi. So it's probably one of the most aggressive lineups we've seen in TESPA in quite some time. From Kent State, we're looking at a very kind of half and half approach, I would say. It has a Death Rattle Hunter. It has access to that Odd Warrior, which is obviously banned away for various reasons. Secret Paladin, and then Control Dragon Priest. So we're looking at pretty crazy lineup here from Kent State, I would say.
Yeah, this is really unique. That Hunter for Kent State, although Death Rattle Hunter is one of the best decks in the game right now, might actually struggle a little bit looking at how aggressive this lineup is overall from Oregon. It's a really unique choice on their part to bring a full aggro lineup. And we can go ahead and take a look at the players from the University of Oregon. We have Serpen, Nyquist, and Noah JV with Psychology, Sports Business, and Undecided for these gentlemen.
See there. I know Core is going to make fun of me because Kent State has one of their team members has a name that
we'll say it together.
She doesn't like me pronouncing, so I'm just going to let her take that over. But they receive varsity format. I wouldn't expect any difference. Look at those sweet jerseys.
Those are nice.
I like the little it looks like kind of like tree branches or electricity coming from their their shoulders. Maybe it's like their power source. I don't know.
What you got there, friend?
I don't know.
What you showing off?
Cora, take this over because I don't want to get made fun of.
All right. From Kent State University, we have Quetzalcoatl, Joshi, and Infinite with Architecture, Anthropology, and Computer Engineering.
I would say Quasi-Codal. But I know that's not right.
Good old Quasi lives down the street.
You're not wrong.
Works at the school.
No, he works up at the
good guy.
The church bells.
No, that's Quasimodo. This is
okay.
This is Quasi-Codal.
My
different
bad.
guy. Different guy. All right, Kent State's got some good-looking jerseys, too. I don't think we've actually seen either of these teams on stream yet this season, which is a little bit strange because, well, we had 6 weeks, of course, of teams that we were seeing, and we saw a lot of the varsity division throughout that time. But these two are first appearances, so you could not actually be on the stream at a time that matters more. Because this is single elimination. If they win here, they advance to the championship bracket. If they lose, their run is done.
Run is done. I like that rhyme there. And from both teams, they had some impressive records. University of Oregon ending up out of the Swiss rounds of 10-3, and Kent State ending up 8-4. So both of these teams had some pretty solid records, I would say, overall. Looks like University of Oregon might have the upper hand, maybe a couple more games under their belt, a little bit more wins. But, I just like how this matchup's going to pair out. I don't know. I really like the aggressive lineup from University of Oregon. I wonder if it was a meta call or if it was something that they had just been comfortable with and they'd been doing time after time. We see a lot of these different TESPA teams have different strategies where they just go ahead and go with what they're comfortable, or they try and target the opponent's decks.
I really like it too. I really respect strategies in Conquest where you take a firm stance on what you think your opponent is going to bring, even though sometimes it can backfire. Sometimes you get massively, massively rewarded for it. I don't think this is one of those times necessarily, but I also don't think it's backfired for Oregon. So we're going to be getting into game number 1 here. It is the Zoo Warlock for Oregon, and it is a heal-based Zoo Warlock. And for Kent State, we've got Secret Paladin, which is a deck that you're not going to be seeing too much of. because Divine Favor is rotating, but there is some good Secret Paladin support coming into the game through Rise of Shadows, so we'll have to see if it's good enough that losing the most significant source of card draw in the Paladin class can still actually make this deck viable. We'll have to see.
Yeah, that new secret engine from Rise of the Shadows looks insane. They've got so many good cards. They've got like a Fiery War Axe.
Yep.
They've got a 3-mana 4/3 that every secret that gets cast gets cast twice.
Mm-hmm. They've
What
got
else is there?
there's
There's
a 2-mana 2/3 that gains +1/+1 if you have a secret.
Oh yeah.
Plus, then we still have the
new secret that came out.
Masked Contender from the last set, the new secret that's coming out.
This may be a strong deck coming into the new format.
It's getting a lot of support, but it's going to fizzle fast. So Kent State are bringing this deck primarily because the rotation has not happened yet, and they still can main deck 2 copies of Divine Favor. But still, then the question remains, we've got 2 aggro decks here. And both of these aggro decks are, I would say, board-centric aggro decks. So how do they interact with each other? Would you give either of these decks an edge?
I would probably give Zoo an edge just because it seems to be more consistent and the minion pressure seems to be a little bit better. It feels like Secret Paladin optimizes on going taller with something like Blessings of Kings rather than going wider, but it can go wide. It has the best of both worlds. Whereas Zoo Warlock just, I think, has more consistent pressure after pressure, so I would have to give it to Zoo. Zoo also has a couple of tools to kind of help it out, especially cards like Soulfire. They're huge for tempo swings. However, Kent State has had a really good start so far, and I really like how they're being patient, don't want to put out the Knife Juggler just yet. Maybe they want to try and put the Blessings of Kings onto this Righteous Protector after it gets revived. So I really like the way Kent State is approaching this. Oh my gosh.
Bit of a tongue twister for you today.
I can't speak.
You know what? This is earlier than we're usually casting. We just need to warm up. We should have done tongue exercises.
I just love how you're like, oh, this is earlier than what we're casting.
She sells
it's still
seashells down by the seashore.
It is still 3
Mary
p.m.
had
Pacific.
a little lamb. 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish. Red leather, yellow leather. Okay, we're good. We're very warm.
Sure, Cora?
Sure. Oh yeah. Boiling. I think that Zoo Warlock is just a better deck than Secret Paladin right now. And while the Secret Paladin, I think, can hit those really phenomenal starts and you can just completely blow out the opponent with a Secret Keeper that never dies or with a well-timed Sunkeeper Terum, I think Zoo Warlock is more consistent. That's why Zoo Warlock has been a deck in pretty much every format that Hearthstone has ever had since Raynad created the game all those years ago. But you know what? In a small sample size such as this, I could easily see the Secret Paladin being able to capitalize on this really solid early start. But instead of that coin Blessing of Kings, which would provide a really clean trade over the Tar Creeper, Kent State are actually going to opt to develop the Knife Juggler this turn. Do you like that?
I think I do. The reason I wouldn't like to see the Blessings of Kings is because if you go for the Blessings of Kings play, you're dedicating your trade onto the Tar Creeper, and when you do that, you're sacrificing the Righteous Protector without any secrets up to this 3/1 Flame Imp. Whereas with this play, what'll end up happening is, hopefully, you know, Oregon's not on 5 mana yet. They don't have to worry about Despicable Dreadlord, if that's even in the deck list, which it is. It is in the deck list. So what'll happen is the Tar Creeper will swing over, the Noble Sacrifice will proc, hopefully killing off this Flame Imp, and then after that, the Tar Creeper goes into the 2/1, they can then Blessings the Kings next turn, and hopefully take the board back that way. So I really like the way Kent State's playing this, being patient, understanding that they don't need to necessarily utilize coin, and setting up the Knife Juggler with Champion's Maul in hand is very important. However, Oregon playing this pretty well as well. They opted to go ahead and play out the Serenite Chain Gang first, just in case it were something like this Noble Sacrifice, to hopefully hit the juggle on the Chain Gang rather than the 3/1.
Auto Defense Matrix picked up for Kent State. One of the best secrets that Paladin has gotten since Avenge, I would say. When a minion is attacked, give it Divine Shield. But is it good enough to throw Kent State off of a King's turn this turn? Do they want to use the coin right away? They are running out of stuff. If this hand can't get them there, they're going to be playing off the top of their deck. And the nature of Secret Paladin is that you have to play a lot of low-value cards because they synergize so well with the rest of your deck. But if you're ever in a situation where you're drawing off the top of your deck and you hit those low-value cards, then suddenly you're going to be in kind of a lot of trouble.
Yeah, this is one of those matchups that, because Divine Favor is so crucial to refill, the Divine Favor is never really going to get value. Zulak is just going to keep playing its hand. It's going to start life tapping and then playing minion after minion. So if the game goes on too long with Kent State not having a sizable board over the Zulak opponent, they're going to have trouble trying to get themselves back into this game. So as you can see here, I mean, this is just a side effect of what Zulak can do. I mean, they're just going to play 3 minions in 1 turn on 5 mana, finally try and win back this board state. And Kent State just has Coin and Blessings of Kings in their hand. And both players at a pretty healthy life total. Okay. It's a pretty decent draw. Will allow them to utilize this Knife Juggler. I would like to see them go for it first if they're going to. Just because they could have hit that juggle.
Yeah, a little bit strange. Generally, you want to sequence your plays with Secret Paladin so that you can get the maximum amount of value from your Knife Juggler, and then maybe be able to make better trades as a result.
Yeah, I'm a little curious why they went for those trades first. I think it would have made more sense to try and go for the Lost in the Jungle first. This would tell me that they're not wanting to... They're either wanting all the juggles to go face, or they're just not wanting to play it. But it doesn't make sense not to play it. So yeah, I don't necessarily agree with this from Kent State. I would have much rather seen them go for the Lost in the Jungle first. Because let's say one of the daggers go into the 2-1 there. May have saved them an extra 1-1. You never know. All Oregon needs here is like a Despicable Dreadlord. And then they're just right back in this. Soulfire.
Really strange that Kent State, 6 turns into the game now, still have the coin in their hand. I don't know that they're... Somebody's like, guys, you got to get out.
I'm sorry, Kent State's light just went off. And they were like, what are you doing?
It might be one of those rooms that has those automatic lights when people are in there, and maybe they're so focused that they haven't moved in the last hour.
No, it's definitely someone turned the light off.
Oh, there's a good draw.
It's just awkward, because if you play it, you're...
There were a lot worse things that Kent State
I think you
could have
play
found.
it, and then just take one trade and push the rest face. But it is a little awkward.
They did just see 1 Soulfire.
Yeah, you would really like to see this 2-1 get cleared up by a juggle, but you know what? If you're leaving up 1-3-3, I think it's fine. I really like the Tarim here. Just put a lot of pressure on. You're not going to have the gas to get there in the end, especially with life taps coming through from your opponent. So I would really like to see Kent State just commit it, trade off one of the Silverhand recruits, go face with the other 2.
I don't think being greedy this turn is a real option for Kent State.
See, I don't even like the trade here. I think they're considering it, but I just... Face. That 3-2 is going to have to go into a 3-7 if they draw something like a Doomguard. Sure, you just keep going face.
They're not actually playing Leroy Jenkins in this version of the deck, which is really strange.
Not playing Doomguard.
I'm talking about Kent State.
Oh, you're... Okay.
Yeah, no, Kent State is not playing Leroy Jenkins. Which usually in a Secret Paladin you want to have some form of a burst finisher, but instead they have 2 copies of Amani Berserker to make their call to arms stronger. But then that makes their top decks a little bit weaker if they're not finding that call to arms. Sometimes they're drawing Amani Berserker instead of Leroy. But yes, for the zoo,
yeah, they're not playing.
There is Leroy Jenkins.
That's why I was a little confused. Like, there's no Leroy. I was like, looking at one.
I am.
We were not in sync there. Oh, okay. See, I'm a zoo.
You are the warlock.
I am one with Gul'dan.
I am one with Sir Anoyo.
Ain't that the truth? No, I'm just playing.
What a life. Hey. Hello.
Oh, God. Spellbreaker's not a bad draw. I'm glad they life tap first. I think they would have much rather played any of their 4 drops rather than Prince Kellis at that turn. This is where we start to see that fizzle. I mean, although Oregon's pretty low, if Kent State just couples a couple of draws of Redemption, maybe another Noble Sacrifice, it could look pretty bad for him.
Another Righteous Protector in the deck, another Secret Keeper, 2 Amani Berserkers, 2 Hydrologists. Far more small stuff in the deck than there is large stuff. And the reason why this deck worked so well back in 2015, 2016, when Secret Paladin reigned, was because Mysterious Challenger not only gave you such a big tempo boost from pulling the secrets from your deck and putting them in play, it also thinned out your deck so that your draws were going to be better from that run out. If Kent State doesn't hit that Bell Ringer Sentry right on turn 4, they have no way of pulling those secrets out of their deck now. And they're close, but again, there's no Leroy in the deck. Which means they need to find the minion damage or a Vine Cleaver to be able to close this out.
I think because there's no Doomguard in the list, I'm not opposed to trading off of the Sunkeeper Tarim. However, there is something to be said about going face and trying to set up a top deck Vine Cleaver as lethal.
There is one Blessing of Kings left in the deck as well. Plus, the Leroy draw for Oregon is just really bad.
Yeah, bad is one of those words. I think the question here is if they life tap, they're dead without Dreadlord or Taunt. So can they afford to play Prince Khaliseth first before they life tap?
They do have heal options in the deck as well. There were a few draws there that kept them in this, even if they played the Khaliseth first. But I guess deeming this the necessary order. But they are dead because of the redemption in play. It doesn't matter what they kill. And I mean, for all they knew, that was redemption, or it could have been Noble Sacrifice, and they would have been dead anyway.
I think no matter what it was,
Auto
they were
Defense
dead.
Matrix, yeah. There's no secret in the deck that would have kept them alive this turn. So Kent State are going to take game number 1 with the Secret Paladin. It is an aggro deck that I think tends to be fair against other aggro decks. I could see the Secret Paladin taking a win against the Rogue or the Hunter as well. So I don't think that was unexpected as far as being able to get the Secret Paladin through for Kent State. And the Zoo Warlock will find a better matchup, hopefully.
Yeah, the Secret Paladin is in a really weird spot. It goes to show you that it had one of its most powerful starts, and it still almost fizzled at the end. If you gave it 1 to 2 more turns, maybe you gave a little bit more extra life to Oregon State, maybe they would have gotten there.
That's the thing with that deck. Even with 2 copies of Divine Favor, if you're playing against decks that have a ton of cards in hand, they likely have a ton of answers for the cards that you could draw from Divine Favor. It's more likely a control deck that is playing a lot of AoE, like a Warrior or a Priest. And in that case, I don't see the Secret Paladin doing particularly well either. So either you're playing against an aggro deck where Divine Favor doesn't do much, or you're playing against a control deck where it does a lot, but you just don't have the power spikes in the deck like you used to. You can't play Dr. Boom, you can't play Mysterious Challenger, you can't play Quartermaster. You can play Level Up, but you don't have Muster for Battle, so why would you? It's just a lot of things coming together that, in my mind, make this worse than Odd Paladin right now. But obviously they disagree, and hey, they picked up the win here, so it is possible that I'm just not giving this deck the credit that it deserves.
Yeah, it's a weird deck. It's hard to explain. It's very anti-aggro, but not great at being anti-aggro, and it's not great at being like
anti-control aggro.
You can't be anti-control aggro. I don't even know what I'm saying there. But what I'm trying to say is it's not very good at anti-aggro, so if you're trying to build a very aggressive deck that aims to beat up on things like Rogue or Zoo Warlock, you might as well just go with Odd Paladin. It just does it so much better, I would say.
Yeah, Odd Paladin consistently beats Death Rattle Hunter, consistently beats Rogue, can beat Zoo Warlock if they don't have the Despicable Dreadlords at the right time. I don't know. I think aggro paladins are in a weird place. I think in the new expansion, aggro paladins will be better simply because
fun.
This particular Secret Paladin build is getting a ton of help, and more importantly, the entire environment around the aggro paladin is changing dramatically.
I can't wait for the new Secret Paladin cards. I can't wait to just do degenerate things. I can't wait to have that new secret up and then have the 4/3.
Yeah,
and then they just have to trigger it because they have to wrath it for 3 because they're playing Druid like a dummy. I don't even know, but they just have to wrath it for 3, and then
Mr.
it becomes
Shade.
a 4/7, and I'm like, secret's triggered twice. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, obviously we haven't had much experience with the new cards yet. Although I did actually set up a pre-release at my house this past weekend and open up my packs and play a little bit with some of the new
I did see that. I was
decks.
curious how you did that.
It was super, super easy. I did it like 3 hours before I actually scheduled it, and immediately as soon as it was firesidegatherings.com, you could set up a pre-release for any location, and you just make it unlisted so other people can't see it. Sorry, guys, I didn't want you showing up at my house. That would have been a little bit intrusive. And then it's like, all right, you were accepted, and then you go
I drove
online.
4 hours for this pre-release.
Ooh, we don't even have snacks. And you just go online on your account right before your pre-release is scheduled to start, and it prompts you to be like, would you like to start hosting your gathering? And it's like,
That's pretty cool.
pick the Wi-Fi source that you want to be using.
Cora's
and
about
for
to go to
people
Blizzard
be
jail,
on.
by the way, for
Dude.
releasing all this information.
No, they want people to know this information. They want people to do this. Anybody, any Joe Schmo at home could have set up their own pre-release. It was super
Well,
simple.
don't throw Joe Schmo in that like that. Don't throw my boy Joe Schmo in it like that.
No, all I'm saying is if Joe wanted to open his packs this past weekend, he could have.
I actually was trying to figure that out because I saw your stream and I was like, how is she opening her packs from her house right now? And then I
so
tried to do it
convenient.
myself. I was like, do I just have to connect to like another user? I was like, Dad, get on your tablet.
Help.
I need to see something real quick. And there was no fireside option, so I was like, dang it.
All right, we have the Pirate Rogue for Oregon up against the Death Rattle Hunter from Kent State, and what a start this is from Oregon. Hench Clan Thug, Myra's, and Prep Raiding Party.
Yeah, it was pretty strong. It's a pretty strong start. But I would like to raise you one Prince Keleseth. This might be one of the last Prince Keleseths we ever see in competitive Hearthstone.
Oh no.
Why'd you say it like that?
Curses. I'll miss you so.
Oh no.
Darn.
It does look like Kent State is kind of teched for matchups like this, though. You see one copy of Mind Control Tech. There's also a copy of Stitch Tracker, a copy of Gluttonous Ooze. Looks like they were trying to go a little bit anti-aggressive with this. It still has that huge top end of Charged Devilsaur, King Crushinu, and Dasta. But it does have a lot more techs for the early game than I would say maybe typical lists do.
Yeah, I mean, you can tech for aggro as Death Rattle Hunter. Sometimes you'll see Fireflies in the early game, which are really helpful. Gluttonous Ooze and Mind Control Tech, of course, as well. But still, so much of the game plan for the Warlock is going to rely on sticking big threats, and this Rogue deck just plays sap. And
Yeah.
if it gets that sap down and can build a board behind it, it's just such a massive tempo swing for the Rogue.
Honestly, for Kent State here, I like just playing out Mind Control Tech. You know they have the Shadow Blade, and it's a little awkward, but honestly, if your opponent knows you're playing Mind Control Tech, they're probably going to play around it, especially when you have Curve into Houndmaster Shaw being a 4/7. The turns are looking pretty strong for Oregon so far. I think they're trying to play it in a way that if the Shadow Blade gets Gluttonous Oozed, they're not that concerned with it. But from Oregon's side, I really like just Hench Clan Thug, swing, and say, you know what? You need either like Candle Shot, which you probably would have played on turn 1 if you had it, just to develop it. That way you didn't have to play it off curve. Or you're going to need a Flanking Strike and trade off your Mind Control Tech. And I think that's a win-win for Oregon, because then they can go Shadow Blade, double Pirate, get them.
The other option this turn would be like Shadow Blade, Coin, Deadly Poison, and play both the Corsairs. But then you're playing into that Gluttonous Ooze maybe a little bit too much.
Yeah,
and
if you
also into Flanking Strike on turn 4.
Yeah, I don't know about this one.
I like this
I don't like this.
least of the options.
Yeah.
I like going for either sticking a Dread Corsair, trying to stick 2 Dread Corsairs, or try to stick that Hench Clan Thug. This, to me, is giving up the board guaranteed.
Oh, yeah. That's why I really don't like this.
It's too passive.
Because if they had played the Hench Clan Thug, the response would have been this. They could have then used the Shadow Blade and even maybe value traded into the Houndmaster Shaw and then just played 2 3/3s to protect the Hench Clan Thug. And then their response is like Grizzly, and then you just snowball from control. I think that turn right there may have cost Oregon this game.
The Rogue, if they can maintain a tempo lead in this game, if they can maintain initiative, they will snowball this matchup before the Hunter can get to those like Kathrina or Death Rattle activated power turns. The Rogue's just too fast. And I think this was dang near the perfect hand for Oregon to execute that game plan.
Oh, yeah, especially because even if they like refilled their entire hand, if they just threw everything out there. I think they're playing around Gluttonous is just too much, in my opinion.
There's only one copy in the deck. And we can see, obviously, Kent State's hand is heavy. But Oregon feel like the Houndmaster Shaw is too much of a threat. They have to sap it.
And you don't have a sap for this now.
Which means you have to kill this with valuable damage that you would rather be throwing face.
There is one copy of Vilespine Slayer. They could draw that. Just makes it a little awkward because they would have to coin out the Vilespine Slayer without having any potential follow-up. I just really wish we would have seen the Hench Clan Thug. I'm trying to think of what they were concerned about. It had to have been like Candle Shot.
Yeah, I mean, general rule of thumb, if you have a Hench Clan Thug on turn 3 as a rogue, you pretty much, you try to find really good reasons not to play it, and then even still you probably play it.
Still a fairly strong turn for them, though. Then go ahead and clear this up, push a little bit of damage. We've got a pretty sizable board at this rate. Just the Hench Clan Thug is just sitting there now. One of the best things about Death Rattle Hunter, I'm just going to like kind of veer off here. One of the best things about Death Rattle Hunter is in the Specialist format, it's a very strong deck because you can tech it for almost every matchup. I think mid-range decks are some of the best for the Specialist format. So if any viewers at home are playing some lovely open cups or getting ready for the Specialist format when it becomes more of a thing in the future, mid-range decks seem to be better because you can tech them for aggro, you can tech them for control. Whereas control, you can't really tech against, at least not until you see the new cards, right? For instance, there is a 4-mana 3/8 that takes a minion out of your opponent's deck that will help against like anti-control, like Togwaggle stuff. But for the most part, at least in this meta, you couldn't really tech for anti-control. That's why mid-range decks kind of reign supreme in these Specialist opens. But this is Conquest. So if you're a Conquest gamer, ignore everything I just said.
Well, even if you are a Conquest gamer, you're not going to be a Conquest gamer
For
much
long.
longer. Conquest just isn't going to be the premier Hearthstone format starting after the World Championships, so like May 1st.
Does that mean next season of Tespa is going to be Specialist? Oh, wow.
Well, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's right. Tespa's completely different. You never know.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Actually, yeah, probably. Tespa tends to mirror Blizzard's premier format pretty closely. Tespa is, of course, a subsidiary of Blizzard, I believe. But hey, we'll cross that road when we get to it.
You heard that, Collegiate students.
Brush up on your Specialist
formats. Get your Specialist format knowledge ready. And you know who to talk to. That's me, Specialist Master.
23 open cups and counting.
21.
Oh, sorry. I give you too much credit.
Honestly, I can't believe I've played that many. When I saw Lorinda's stats, Lorinda, you should go check him out on Twitter. He has a bunch of stats for players, and there's this thing called the Yikes Club, which is everybody who's played like numerous Open Cups who's made top 8 in like 4 or 5 of them, and they haven't won one yet. He calls it the Yikes Club. I'm in the Junior Yikes Club.
You're a JV Yikes.
I'm a JV Yikes.
Okay, so Oregon opted to trade over 2 of their minions and push this Shadowblade face. I would prefer very much to see the Shadowblade either trade into the Wolf or either, maybe even not swing at all.
I think I like not swinging because you have Captain Greenskin next turn. If you can make that a 6/2, it's really strong. But I don't mind trading off the minions. Trading off the minions makes it less weak to something like Deathstalker Rexar. And I think with this current hand, they could technically beat a Rexar.
It would also play around the 1 copy of Mind Control tech. But we've seen that already.
Yeah, we've already seen that, so it's not necessarily playing around that. Trying to think what else it could play around. I think for the most part, it's just playing around that Deathstalker Rexar.
It plays around the board being too cluttered. 4 things? Whew. That's a lot of things.
That is a lot of things. Now it's a little awkward because they're on 7 mana, and if they Shadowblade, they don't really have anything to follow it up with.
Oh. Good draw, bad timing.
Honestly, as much as I hate to say this,
Leroy!
Yeah, I really like Leroy. Leroy Hero Power. You kill off the 3/8. Looks like they got different plans. I really don't like this. It's like if they were trading earlier to play around Deathstalker Rexar, this just plays into it even more.
Yep. This.
And they know there's a Houndmaster Shaw in the hand.
I would have liked to see Leroy plus the deckhand trade over, dagger one of the 1/1s, push that Hench Clan face.
Yeah, I think so as well. Because then you save the Shadowblade for next turn, so you can go Shadowblade Vilespine or Shadowblade Captain Greenskin. I just think they're playing way too off curve with this rogue deck. Our Backstab Greenskin is looking pretty strong here.
Really nice Shadowblade value, and they've gotten a lot of the expensive stuff out of their deck to the point where when they play Myras, they're very likely to draw Burn. They've got another Deadly Poison in the deck. They've got a couple Falderai Striders, which are so good post Myras. A couple SI7 agents. They're going to be picking up good stuff.
Myra's almost will draw like everything as well.
Yeah, they've not got a whole lot left. Down to 12 cards in deck.
All right, here's a risky strategy. Nah, I don't think you can risk that. I was about to say King Crush face.
And hope you don't die, and it doesn't die.
You either force them to kill it, or you win next turn. I'm curious if they're that far behind that they need to go for that. They would die to Leroy. That would be one of the few cards they would die to. If they take a value trade, they do still get 8 damage face.
They have seen 1 sap already, but if they go for Cube Argus, they lose to 2nd sap, or a copy of Vilespine that has an activator.
Yeah, I think you go King Crush and trade into the 5/4. It's just, it's so tempting to try and see if you can win the game by going face.
Is there a single draw in the deck that Kent State could find that would win them the game if they trade here? Kathrina would still be very good. Deathstalker Rexar would still be very good.
They don't have any more Witchwood Grizzlies.
No, they have an Undasta and a Devilsaur. But at the very least, Kathrina would pull something that could immediately take a trade.
Oh, Eviscerate's going to be lethal.
Yeah, it's exactly 16 damage, actually. So Oregon are going to tie things up. Going to bring it to a 1-1 score here in our first series of the day. This Pirate Rogue deck, very favored against Hunter. I think this is the expected outcome. But even still, I think that there were ways that Oregon could have played that game that would have given them more percentage points in this matchup.
Yeah, I definitely think Oregon could have got to the win much quicker if they had played it much differently. One thing one of the most important things with Rogue is understanding how your curve is going to pan out in the next couple of turns, especially with cards like Vilespine in your deck and Captain Greenskin. A lot of players, they kind of just want to say, all right, well, Shadowblade, Hench Clan Thug, value trade looks good here. I can save my bigger minions for later. I don't necessarily have to commit them to the board. But when you're staring down a turn of like, hey, the Leroy looks really good here. I can dagger, keep my Hench Clan Thug at 5 health, which means it doesn't die to flanking, it doesn't die to Rexar. I definitely think there were some things that Oregon can go back and look at that game to see differently.
And that deck is very skill-intensive, very reliant on finding your raiding parties and your Myras to give you the resources that you actually need to win the game. But once you get over that initial hurdle and find your raiding parties and find your Myras, then it is one of the best decks in the game. It's one of the highest win percentage decks in the game. So I do think there were a couple things that Oregon could have done differently, maybe a few things that they want to look into cleaning up with that, but they do find the win. They found a very good matchup for that Rogue. So very important that they did not drop that one to the Death Rattle Hunter, because I do think the Death Rattle Hunter could be the deck for Kent State that is maybe a little bit difficult to find a win with. But we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get into game number 3 here of our first series of the day, and we're going to see what both teams are going to be bringing to battle right after this.
Intel Core i7 processor.
Oregon and Kent State are currently tied 1-1 here in our first series of the week for the varsity playoffs. And we are going to be getting into game number 3. We just saw the Death Rattle Hunter drop a game to the Pirate Rogue deck from Oregon. And that was not an unexpected result, but I do kind of worry a little bit for this Death Rattle Hunter. I think Kent State finding a win with Control Priest against this very aggressive lineup from Oregon shouldn't be too difficult, but Death Rattle Hunter might have a harder time.
Yeah, Death Rattle Hunter is one of the decks that I was a little worried about. I wasn't worried about necessarily the other 3 decks, maybe Paladin just because it was a bit inconsistent as a deck overall. But we saw the Paladin get a win in the first game of the day against Zoo Warlock, so not too worried about it now. They do have this Control Priest still, and they will have the Death Rattle Hunter. So I think Control Priest pretty good against Zoo Warlock, pretty decent against even Paladin as well. So I'm not too worried about Priest ever. It is this Hunter that is going to struggle.
Yeah, well, we're going to see maybe it can get through the Even Paladin, because Even Paladin does have a little bit of a slower game plan than Zoo Warlock or Mid-Range Hunter or even Pirate Rogue like we just saw in our previous game. But this Even Paladin from Oregon does have a really exciting new inclusion in Archmage Vargoth, which is the card that was given for free to anybody who logged in as part of the upcoming Rise of Shadows expansion. And it fits in beautifully in quite a few decks right now. And you really only have another 2 days to actually play it in these decks before they go bye-bye because we're rotating so many cards to Wild. But an Even Paladin, Togwaggle Druid, and Clone Priest in particular, Archmage Vargoth, is so powerful.
Yeah, I would say Clone Priest is probably going to be the strongest of the decks that Vargoth is in. I would say second is going to be the Druids, and then even Paladin is interesting to me because it does work very well with a lot of the cards. For instance, it works really well with like Consecration as a 4 mana, deal 4 damage to all, which is absolutely insane. But sometimes it can backfire. Let's say you have Vargoth on the board and you go Blessings of Kings, but they have multiple minions on their board. You could end up Blessings of Kingsing the opponent's minion. So it's a bit scary at times.
Yeah, just in case you had not played with Archmage Vargoth yet or haven't logged in, it is a 4-mana 2/6 legendary minion that reads, at the end of your turn, cast a spell you've cast this turn. Targets are random. So the Blessing of Kings could hit the Vargoth, could hit a minion on your side of the board, or it could hit one of your opponent's minions, and then they could immediately attack with it.
Just to let everybody at home know, Cora had to Google the card.
I know what it does. I wanted the exact wording. I wanted to be very precise.
Cora had to Google search the new card.
Jace?
That if she played one game of Ladder, she definitely would have known what it did.
Jace, I've played it in Clone Priest. I am a delinquent.
She had to Google the card, that's all
I
I'm
can
saying.
pull up my account right now and show you my Clone Priest deck, and show you
I'm
my
sure it's in
Togwaggle
it.
Druid deck, and show you my Vargoth.
I'm sure it's in
It's
it.
there.
You still had to Google the card.
I wanted the exact...
I
Forget
am
it.
disappointed.
You know what, Jace? Why didn't you win your Open Cup this past weekend?
Because I didn't.
I'm disappointed.
You should be. I'm disappointed too.
Great, we'll leave it
At
there.
least I didn't have to Google the card. At least-
Maybe if you did, you would have won.
No, that definitely would have changed anything.
You never know. Fireward Shield and the Fire Tree Witch Doctor. Try to keep it around a little bit longer here, instead of playing the second Fire Tree Witch Doctor from hand. You know the card that says Battle Cry if you're holding a dragon, discover a spell? That card?
Proud of you. You didn't Google that one.
Thanks.
They went for the Repentance there just to try and stop. I'm actually curious what they're trying to stop by playing Repentance rather than Hero Powering. It would make sense going into turn 4. I guess the hope for Kent State, or for Oregon here, is that going into turn 4, they would rather True Silver. So they need to play the Repentance now to try and stop something like the Twilight Drake from coming down and being a nuisance. But it's going to end up backfiring pretty hard for them here.
Yeah, it would have had to be Kent State playing no minion this turn into like a Scale Worm or a Twilight Drake on turn 4, and then being punished by the Repentance.
Mind Visions in the True Silver is pretty powerful. True Silver is extremely good, like mirror matches. especially if even Paladin, just because it can kill up 2 threats with 1 body. It's absolutely insane.
Control Priest is all about controlling the board early, removing threats, and then eventually you get to Shadow Reaper Anduin and Mind Blast as a win condition. But True Silver is just going to help Kent State get there a little bit smoother.
Oh, we gotta hear what Madame Lazul says when she attacks. Everyone quiet, everyone quiet. Shh, Cora, shush. Cora, I said be quiet.
Says nothing.
She says absolutely nothing! Maybe I told everyone to be quiet too much that Lazul heard me.
She's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Jace.
Oh, here's Vargoth.
Vargoth, if Kent State play nothing this turn, Oregon can Spike Ridge Steed and hit another Spike Ridge Steed. Obviously, Kent State are going to kill Vargoth.
Yeah.
He is public enemy #1 in pretty much every deck you're playing him in now.
If they had played Vargoth 1 turn later, it would have been Cabald.
And then 1 Mind Blast 10 damage, second Mind Blast 10 damage, Shadow Visions twice. Card gets out of hand. Insane when you hit it off of Oaken Summons. Insane when you hit it off of Shadow Essence or Spellstone and Priest to bring it back. Get second Spellstone or Shadow Essence.
The card is crazy is what we're trying to say.
It's not going to be as crazy 2 days from now. But right now, super good. And Oregon are already starting to fall a little bit behind. They have 2 True Silvers and a Consecration in hand, which in other matchups would be really great because it means that they could preserve the board that they built in the first few turns. In this matchup, it is too much removal. It's unnecessary.
We're losing Spike Ridge Steed, too.
We are losing a lot of very powerful cards.
How the great have fallen.
Kent State-
Acolyte of Pain is, sorry to cut you off. Acolyte of Pain is an interesting inclusion in this deck. Typically you don't see it, as there's not many great ways to enable it unless you are running something like Wild Pyromancer, but there's no Wild Pyromancers in these lists because they've opted to cut them for the Fire Tree Witch Doctors.
Yeah, when Odd Paladin was more popular, you were seeing double Wild Pyromancer in every Control Priest list, but now it's just not as necessary. They'd rather have a value option. I was just going to say they could set up for the 2-turn steal here. Go like Twilight Acolyte, Acolyte of Pain this turn, set up for Cabal Shadow Priest on the next turn. But there is a lot of really big stuff in the Paladin deck that maybe they would rather hold on to Twilight Acolyte and Cabal Shadow Priest to use in the same turn.
Yeah, there's Tyrion, Lich King, any Valinir minion would be really great.
Jace, we have special guests in the building. It's Tommy! Hi, Tommy. Tommy's actually not directing for us today. We have the lovely Nikki behind the board because Tommy is off directing some other show that's not as important as this one.
I can't believe he left us. I'm giving him the stare down right now. I can't believe he left us.
Tommy said
trying
he
to
did it
apologize
because
right
they kidnapped him and are holding him for ransom. So we need you to tweet at Team Tespa with ways to save Tommy.
Hashtag free Tommy.
Yeah, from the evil other show.
Hashtag and Chef.
And Chef's there too. Hi, Chef.
Just to describe to the viewer at home what's going on right now is the green room is like in our sight. We can see it, so we can see like everyone from production and stuff. And
They're
Tommy
chilling.
and Chef just came in from working the other show, and now we're making fun of them. And now they're leaving us again.
Bye. Have fun. Don't get lost.
They're working on another series of theirs.
This is a fantastic Psychic Scream turn. Kent State just took one off of the Shadow Visions on the previous turn, and sending the Recruit back into the deck, getting rid of the Spike Ridge Steed, and sending the Gen Greymane back into the deck, which is not something that Oregon necessarily wants to draw. Super clean. Oregon is just so incredibly far behind right now that even if they find a big minion, it's not going to save them because by turn 9, Kent State can steal anything that they would play.
And the Valinir minion being stolen is probably going to hurt the most. That's real rough. Honestly, if you're Kent State here, I don't mind just using one of the Cabals. Get the board back, hero power your face. Try and put some pressure on. You still have another Cabal. And if you play the Cabal, it's more likely that Oregon falls into the trap of saying, well, they just played a Cabal here.
Probably don't have a second one.
Probably don't have a second one, let alone the Twilight Acolyte. Anduin, I don't necessarily like. I really like taking this minion from them just to stop the threat of something like Blessings of Kings. Because if they go Blessings of Kings, swing in the face, equip a True Silver, and just keep going, trying to use every single bit of weapon damage to kill their opponent, they might actually get there. That's why I want to get rid of the option, because if they went Valinir Pass, you know their hand has got to be just as awkward as it can be.
The Anduin this turn would be signifying the start of a race, essentially, for Kent State. If they play the Anduin, it's because they want to start pinging face. They want these Mind Blasts to win them the game in a couple turns. I don't think they necessarily need to do that to win this game. They can play the Anduin on a turn where maybe it'll pick up some value, maybe Oregon doesn't have anything to play, and Kent State can just then start safely racing because Oregon have already fallen so far behind. But I don't think that turn is necessarily right now.
And the thing with Anduin is you have to get a little bit of damage first before the Mind Blast can end the game. So you need to get that constant minion pressure. However, oh, show them the one off the top. No, not that one. Put that one back. Put that one back. No, it's always the one off the top.
They're nice fellas.
I'm trying to go for the psychological advantage here.
They've just stolen their opponent's Valinir. They've already got it. The psychological advantage is theirs. They're winning the board against a deck that is only built to win the board.
All right. Blessings of Kings, Mojo Master Z, he hit him in the face. Let's go. This works too.
Maybe a little overzealous.
No, I think that's the only way they win this game, to be honest. I think they should have done Blessings of Kings, because this Blessings of Kings will never get more damage in. Then again, they probably could have just died to double Mind Blast, so maybe they're trying to find another way. I don't know. I just wanted to see some face damage go out.
I don't blame ya. Scale Worm is a super clean clear onto the Mojo Master Zihi. If Kent State want it to survive, they can even give it Power Word Shield and forego healing this turn. Then maybe force the True Silver swing into it. Somebody keeps turning off their lights.
I think it is a motion light, like you were saying.
Yeah, I think
every
he just
time
like put his arm up and snapped.
They're just so concentrated right now.
Okay, so Kent State really just wanted this Valinir up this turn so they could start swinging and get
like
a buff
it.
next turn. And this is more damage than the Spellbreaker would be providing on board. Corpse Taker is a little late. There's still Wind Fury in the deck, there's still Taunt and Divine Shield in the deck.
Still lifesteal as well.
But in this matchup, you need that Corpse Taker right on turn 4 before the Priest can deal with it.
Still has to be the Corpse Taker here, though. Maybe they heal up enough from the Corpse Taker. Eventually get there in the end. Very optimistic, but it's a plan.
Best they can do.
I think it's got to be Bump. Dustbreaker. Hit him in the face. Then try and play the Twilight Acolyte with the buff on it, hopefully.
Yeah, 50-50.
I just don't see a point of not clearing the full board state.
So close to being able to win the game. A double Mind Blast in hand is just ready to go. But it can potentially end the game next turn if Oregon doesn't heal.
Yeah, I like this. Play the Dustbreaker this night with too many other board states where this card would be better. I really like the swing. If you find it on Twilight Acolyte, it's actually insane, because then you just give the Dustbreaker more attack. And it's still got that Valenier with it. Yes, this is fine too. I just think this is a little bit too passive, especially when they're trying to end the game with double Mind Blast.
This is still a double Mind Blast setup, but it requires the Dustbreaker and the Valenier to hit face next turn. So now Kent State are going to be a little bit short.
Yeah, with the 2 heal there. I don't think there's another Mind Blast in the deck. I think those both were naturally drawn. So because of that, the Shadow Visions cannot find another one. Shadowy Brandwin's fine here. You know you're not dead to anything next turn. Might as well get it down. That way you have like a guaranteed setup on lethal.
Things are going to win them the game. Oregon will be able to go up to 18. But Kent State are going to hit them for 4, so they're at 14. And with 2 Mind Blasts and 2 pings, there's your 14.
I'm trying to think. If they draw Crystal Smith Kangor, I don't think they heal up enough out of range. They would go back to 16. They'd still be dead. There is nothing inside of... I mean, let's take a glance. Wind Fury Harpy, Lich King, Tyrion. Mojo Master is gone. They don't die to Avenging Wrath.
Okay, Kent State have opted to play super passively instead. They swing the Valenier into the Argent Protector. They do manage to land the buff onto the Twilight Drake, but this is not the line that I was seeing for them whatsoever. It's much more board-oriented, but it was looking to me like they could have set up a guaranteed 2-turn with just the Endo in this turn, and it was safe. Looking at the Even Paladin, there's no equality, so the Sunkeeper Tarim would be the only way for Oregon to mitigate this Twilight Drake. But there was a way.
I like how aggressive they're getting. I think Oregon probably has a read that they don't have cards like Double Mind Blast in their hand. Maybe even a single Mind Blast because of how passive they've been playing.
Well, they're going to get the firm read now that they are dead, thanks to the Double Mind Blast that were all the way on the left side of Kent State's hand. And Kent State are going to go up to a 2-1 lead here. That last turn wasn't exactly what we were seeing. We were seeing a line that was foolproof even with a Sunkeeper Tarim, whereas the line that they took potentially did get punished by Sunkeeper Tarim, but not enough, I think, that it would have ultimately ended up mattering whatsoever. So they do get that Control Priest through, and now it is going to be down to 2 chances with their Death Rattle Hunter. And this is the deck that we were looking to as being potentially problematic, but they are going to have a shot against the Even Paladin, and then a shot against the Zoo Warlock.
Yeah, I think the Hunter can get it done. I just think it's probably going to be close. It's one of those decks that Hunter, although it has to have a strong curve in these matchups. It cannot afford getting away with just having like a Carnivorous Cube here, maybe stuck with an Undasta in hand. Like they have to hit either the Prince Keleseth curve or they have to hit the Devil Sword with Play Dead curve. They have to hit one of those strong curves.
And Death Rattle Hunter, to be fair, is a deck that can beat anything. It is not as straight-up aggressive as a mid-range Hunter, but it has much more late game against a control deck, and it is really, really powerful in that way. So I do think it has some shot against aggro, and we've seen that they've taken some measures to insulate themselves a little bit against aggro with the Gluttonous Ooze, the Mind Control tech, and the addition of the Stitch Tracker to find those tech cards more than once even, potentially. But it's still not going to be the easiest road for them. So 2 chances. They've given themselves the best possible opportunity to get this win with the Death Rattle Hunter. And I do think against Even Paladin, especially an Even Paladin that does not have equality, they do have a fair shot of sticking something big and then just capitalizing on it. Maybe sticking a Grizzly and cubing it. Or even just sticking a Houndmaster Shaw and following that up with a cube. There is silence to worry about from the Even Paladin, but
2 copies of Spellbreaker.
2 Spellbreakers, they're not always going to have it.
Yeah, they're not always going to have the Spellbreaker, but I think the inclusion of Spellbreaker is going to help them out a lot. I would say if they didn't have the Spellbreakers, it was a much better chance. But with the Spellbreakers inside of the deck, I think it's going to be quite difficult for the Death Rattle Hunter to get there. But they're going to go ahead and lead with the Zoo Warlock. Zoo Warlock is another one of those decks that sometimes you just have an awkward hand like Oregon currently has. Good thing for them, they're going to be able to mulligan the majority of the cards away. Maybe they opt to keep the Mojo Master Zihi. I think that might be a little bit too overzealous, but oh, whew. I see a Flame Imp. I see a Prince Kelly.
I would much rather
I see
have
a Breaker.
Prince 2 than Mojo Master Z.
Whew. I'm calling it, Core. This game's over. I don't even need to see Kent State's hand.
It's not.
I don't even need. Don't show it to me, Cora.
I mean.
Don't show it to me.
You know.
Oh, the coin on the Kelly. Whew, feels so good.
This is fairly.
Now this might be the
fairly
last Prince Kelliseth we see.
Miss you already, buddy.
Okay, I will say though, from Kent State side, I do not like that hero power.
You're just giving them the ability to go Light Warden, Voodoo Doctor, Happy Ghoul.
Well, it's just the ability of giving them Voodoo Doll and Happy Ghoul in general. I mean, maybe they wanted that, but that 2 damage is not going to matter in this matchup. You are not going to burn your opponent.
No, you are going to outlast them. You're going to be able to stick a big beast with Katharina and then overwhelm them all in the matter of 1 or 2 turns. But Kent State with that Mind Control tech and the potential to double Death Rattle activate the Spider Bomb next turn, Oregon needs to play this really specifically. They need to kill this Spider Bomb. And I wonder if they're going to.
Oh, they're definitely going to. 3-2 face, 2-2 face, and then value trade. You can't let the Spider Bomb live. Good ordering as well. I like playing the Light Warden beforehand. Now this makes Mind Control tech a little awkward. Most of these cards really aren't doing anything. I guess Stitch Tracker is alright. Maybe you try and fetch something like another Spider Bomb.
I mean, Grizzly's good, but we see Silence in hand for Oregon. Any of the other minions in hand just get checked by a 1-drop. Although
Like I
it
said,
does look
Cora,
like...
This game is looking over.
It looks like Oregon's going to go for the Saronite next turn, potentially, and trade over the Stitch Tracker.
Nah,
Well,
I
not
don't think
trade,
they're-
but leave the minion go face so the Stitch Tracker can trade over the Voidwalker, and then the Mind Control tech could hit.
Yeah, I like keeping 3 minions. No reason to try and throw the game to Mind Control tech. They can just go Life Drinker, trade off the Taunt minion, go face with the other 2.
I think this is a Stitch Tracker turn.
I think it has to be. They have to find something like a Carnivorous Cube to hope that the Witchwood Grizzly sticks. Gluttonous Ooze is alright as well.
It doesn't really accomplish anything that Stitch Tracker wouldn't as well, except, I suppose, if Oregon have a heal for that Voidwalker, then that could have traded over the Stitch Tracker and survived, whereas now it can't just trade straight over the Gluttonous Ooze. This forces the Flame Imp.
This Life Drinker's a 4/4, I completely forgot.
Because the Light Warden's on the board, having the Life Drinker come down this turn does mean that you're getting that little bit of extra damage in immediately. Play around the Mind Control tech. Super clean from Oregon.
Now they just have to play Witchwood Grizzly and say, hopefully it saves us.
Well, here's the thing. If Oregon don't kill this Grizzly outright, if they just silence it, ignore it, go face, and then Kent State top decks the cube, they do have the play dead. So again, here's another turn where Kent State could potentially punish if Oregon maybe gets a little bit lazy.
I think they can play around this with a Despicable Dreadlord, though. I don't think they need to necessarily push damage this turn. It would be different if they had the burn to follow it up in their hand, like, for instance, a Soulfire or something. I don't even think they set up lethal with the Soulfire, though. They do put them to 6. So I think you can just Dreadlord, trade off the 3-2, take a value trade, then just go ahead and pass. You're still playing around MC Tech. You still have a pretty sizable board, so you're not losing to something like Rexar. And then you could just keep going. And they top deck the cube.
Good on them. Oregon did exactly the right thing there.
Yeah, it was a good play from Oregon. I liked it. It was good recognition from them understanding, hey, what do we lose to here? All right, Carnivorous Cube play dead. No reason to silence that. We can save it for when we get lethal. Maybe even save it for something that gets cube. You never know.
Looking like Devilsaur Egg plus Terrascale Stalker this turn.
Probably has to be.
But they're just going to be dead to Soulfire and Leroy no matter what. There's no way they can prevent that this turn.
Alright, start off with the Kobold Librarian, because if you do draw Leroy, it's lethal. And you can evaluate what you want to do from there. Maybe you can continue to take trades. However, I don't know. I just like pushing face. The only card that would punish that would maybe potentially be a Ziliax. I think it all depends on what they draw here.
The trades are very clean if they want to trade and set up the Dreadlord to just clear up the Terror Scale and the Devil Sword at the end of the turn.
And they could also make a play where they do clear up those 2 minions and still have 3 minions on board. And they're 3 sizable minions. I mean, it's going to be a 4/4, a 3/2, and they'll be able to draw an extra card with life tap.
I think regardless, you're starting this turn with the Kobold just because you have 3 live draws to win the game.
Kobold, then you life tap, then you evaluate from there. Draw Soulfire, great, game's over. Draw Leroy with the Kobold, great, game's over.
If not, you play the Happy Ghoul, clear the board.
Looks like they may be considering the Mojo Master Zihi. No, they're going to go for the Kobold. I like this a lot. I don't know if I like the Spellbreaker, though. I think I would have gone for Life Tap that turn and played the Happy Ghoul. Oh, see, this is
This is playing into Mind Control tech now for the first time this game.
I think now it's fine. I don't think they're as worried. It's just, I'm not sure. I think it's uncharacteristic of like how they've been playing in the earlier turns. I think I would have much rather seen potentially Life Tap. I guess with this wide board state, they're trying to hedge their bets, and then what could be taken from the Mind Control tech to cost them this game, and I don't think any of the minions could be.
No, it would need to be Mind Control tech plus additional follow-up. Maybe MC tech plus Flanking Strike, and you can Terror Scale into the Voidwalker, steal the Dreadlord, and then kill the Spellbreaker. That would be pretty punishing, but even still, Oregon still has draws for lethal.
Yeah, the options right there for the tracking weren't the greatest. It was Carnivorous Cube, Prince Keliseth, and Undasta. They do hit the taunt. I guess that's at least a start.
They're not dead on board now.
They probably need a Stitch Tracker for the Katharina and hope the Katharina pulls the second Witchwood Grizzly. Or maybe hit the Grizzly, I guess. Ziliax isn't
Found the
bad.
Ziliax.
All right,
There's the Soulfire. All right, game number 4 going over to Oregon. We're all tied up now. And it is going to end up being the even Paladin for University of Oregon up against the Death Rattle Hunter from Kent State University.
Whew, what a matchup for the centuries. Both decks that have been around
all of them?
forever. All the centuries.
That's a lot of them.
That's every century that has ever existed for Hearthstone.
Quite a few. Quite a few centuries.
It's actually only one. For this century.
If you insist.
You got nothing for me?
Can't say that I do, Jace. Can't say that I
Centuries.
do. All right, even Paladin versus Death Rattle Hunter. Odd Paladin traditionally is the Death Rattle Hunter counter. Even Paladin, a little bit less so. Do you still favor the even Paladin in this matchup?
It's hard to say. I think even Paladin can get punished more by cards like Spider Bomb than Odd Paladin can, especially if you try and stick one large minion on the board and then they just have Spider Bomb play dead. I think that's going to be potential downfall, but sometimes the even Paladin can get on board pretty quickly and go a little bit wide, so I'd still probably favor the even Paladin,
Okay.
but I think it's going to be a close series.
All right, well, we're going to take a short break where I'm going to give Dr. J a brush up on exactly what matchup for the centuries means. And when we come back, we're going to be getting into game number 5. It's going to be even Paladin versus Death Rattle Hunter. We're going to Game 5 here in the varsity playoffs of the Hearthstone Collegiate Championships. First match of the day, the winner of this game moves on to the semifinals, and that means they're moving on to the championship bracket, where the varsity division moves on to play against the open division. The loser of this series, unfortunately, their tournament run will come to an end, and it's all coming down to Even Paladin versus Death Rattle Hunter here for Oregon, taking on Kent State.
Yeah, it is a story of Death Rattle Hunter just kind of losing. It has lost both of its games so far, especially against the very aggressive lineup from the University of Oregon. So it's going to come down to, can Kent State University get a win with their Death Rattle Hunter, or are they going to get swept on it? It's looking quite scary for them right now.
It's really rare that a Death Rattle Hunter gets swept. It's happened. It's absolutely happened. The most popular instance comes to mind, DreamHack Montreal, Fino versus Just Sayin, where Just Sayin actually...
No, he
reverse
swept with
Death
the Death Rattle
Hunter.
Hunter.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, you don't usually get reverse swept on a Death Rattle Hunter.
No.
That just usually doesn't happen. But maybe today is going to be the day. Oregon, with that Even Paladin, you can see featuring a new card from the Rise of Shadows
New
expansion.
card!
New card, new card, new card. Archmage Vargoth.
Nax out!
GVG, oh my!
Nax out.
Yeah, it's the card that was given away early. If you haven't logged into Hearthstone in the last few days, you can log in now. You also will get a free copy of Archmage Vargoth just for doing so. And I would recommend it because he's actually really, really good. Phenomenal in this current meta. Obviously, that meta will be changing drastically 2 days from now when Rise of Shadows is released. But I would get some playtime in with him in the next couple days because he's sweet.
Yeah, Vargoth is a sweet card. Here's one of those turns that's very interesting for Oregon. They can opt to hero power that turn just to get 2 1/1s on the board. That way next turn they can go Amadi 1/1. But I think the reason to do it this way is because you know they're running mind control tech, and you don't want to quite get punished by that. So if you go for it this way, you make sure that next turn you only have 3 minions on the board, rather than the 4 that would be acquired for mind control tech. So it also just represents more pressure, and I think the way their hand looks is that they need the pressure they can get.
So here's a question. Usually Corpse Taker is the undisputed minion you play on turn 4 at Even Paladin, but now that you have Archmage Vargoth
You're
as
still
well...
playing Corpse Taker.
Okay.
That wasn't a question, Cora.
Well, it would have been if you had let me ask it.
Okay, ask it. Go ahead, Cora. The floor is yours.
No,
I'm still playing Corpse Taker.
I'm okay. I'm shy now.
The question here is, do they even hero power?
Does he mean question?
This one is a legitimate question. Yes, this one is. I would say Vargoth has some potential if they.
Whoa!
Oh. Now that's
They're
some
clocking
respect.
true silver for next turn.
Yeah, they're not doing either of the plans we came up with.
Interesting. So, I mean, this is just heavily playing around Terror Scale Stalker. 100%. They do not want this egg to spawn more than just this single Devilsaur.
Ooh, that's This is where if Tommy was our producer today, he would say tracking is the worst card ever printed, because he does not want to get rid of any of these cards right now.
He would come into our ear and he would say, tracking is the worst. Tracking sucks.
He does do that every
I hate
time.
tracking.
I think it's got to be the Prince Caliseth just because you can play it this turn. It really hurts to get rid of Katharina, but I think this Prince Caliseth buff might be more important.
It really hurts to get rid of Katharina.
It's got to be the Prince K.
The Caliseth buff is great. It's more so that the Caliseth is a 2/2 that you can play on this turn. And does that outweigh the potential benefit of what you're going to get from Katharina 4 turns from now?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know. I think it's close. Katharina can be a big ol' swing, especially since there's no equality for Oregon.
So the most interesting thing about this is the way Oregon played this tells me that they feel as if they can win by taking this Death Rattle Hunter longer. Because killing the egg means they feel like they could win without having to try and go face as much as possible.
Yeah,
I think they can take it longer.
They feel like they can play a mid-range game plan instead of an aggro game plan. I don't know that I agree with them. But then again, we're both biased. We hate Even Paladin.
Yeah, I'm not a Even Paladin enthusiast.
Although, basically, I know for the last, 6 weeks, you've been like, ew, I hate this deck. Ew, I hate this deck, too. Oh, I really need the expansion
Guess what,
to come
ladies?
out. He just
Guess
hates
what,
all the
ladies
decks.
and gentlemen? It's going to be gone soon enough.
Jace has not been happy about this most recent meta.
Honestly, even Paladin is one of the decks I will miss the least. I will miss the most Odd Rogue, even though that's not really a deck right now.
Yeah, I especially don't really like even Paladin. I just think it feels extra bad when things like this happen and you just cannot do anything to combat them. Flanking Strike is perfect into clearing the Vargoth. Oregon didn't even have a phenomenal setup with the Vargoth. It was looking like it would have to be Consecration.
So with the draws so far, it turns out that Katharina was much better than Prince Keliseth. Now, in the immediate, it seemed like Prince Keliseth was better because it fought for board a little bit better that turn. But the way Kent State has been drawing, especially with how they've kind of teched this deck, it looks like it may have been better to take Katharina. So props to them for taking it with this much foresight. Right
Looking
now,
like a Ziliak's turn, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think so as well. Right now, they're just like an autopilot.
Play the card that clears the board and gets you to turn 8 when you play the really good card.
And I think once they play that card, this game might just be over because there's no more Wild Pyromancer quality shenanigans that you can have in this deck. It is a straight up fight for mid range, so I really don't like the way Oregon has taken this.
Well, the alternate line that they could have taken would have been do not kill the Devilsaur, prioritize the Corpse Taker on turn 4, and hope that there are no Devilsaur Egg activators in hand for Kent State. If they'd gone that route, they very likely would have still been punished by like Candle Shot plus a 3-drop that Kent State had been able to stick, or the Flanking Strike. But as we can see, there still isn't a Death Rattle activator for the egg. You don't always need to be so afraid of the egg. You just have a tendency to remember the times when the egg won them the game, instead of the times when the egg didn't do anything.
However, I completely forgot about Mojo Master Zihi. That can stall the Katharina by quite a bit. And with the auto defense matrix, the way it's going to work is it's going to swing in with the Candle Shot, and then try and swing in with the Ziliax, and the Ziliax is going to hit the Divine Shield. So I'm curious if they decide to go for a Magnetize on this first, just to hope that it survives. Because now they know that it's either Redemption, which just makes it a 3-1, which isn't that terrifying, or it is Auto Defense Matrix, and that is pretty scary.
But, you know, unfortunately for Kent State, they have no way of finding out whether it's Redemption or Auto Defense Matrix without just swinging into this Corpse Taker.
Yeah,
this
they have
turn.
to kill it.
They don't have a Flanking Strike. They don't have any way to connect to the Hydrologist with like Deathstalker Rexar. You're just going to have to hit this Corpse Taker.
Yep.
Even still, next turn they're playing Katharina, and their pulls are either Witchwood Grizzly or Undasta.
They're not playing Katharina next turn because Mojo Master Z is going to come down. That's going to stop them from playing that card for quite a bit.
It's going to be quite sad.
I think I would have rather seen them play the Mind Control tech. Just get it on the board. I think right now they need to contest. But that's me seeing Mojo Master right now. Ooh.
That's a good draw. This has to be the Mojo Master Zihi.
Oh,
Oregon know that Kent State picked something up off of tracking. They saw that it's very likely not Deathstalker Rexar. Otherwise, I think that would have been played on the previous turn. Which means, what's the other best card in the deck of the Death Rattle Hunter? And assume it's that and try to play around it best you can.
So the craziest part about this is I think you go Argent Protector onto the 2-2 and take the trade, but the thing is, would you rather play the Mojo Master first in hopes that it dies over this Corpse Taker to push the 6 damage? Or would you rather try and risk that you have both the Corpse Taker and the 3-3 alive? I think I would risk having both the Corpse Taker and the Mojo Master alive. I think that's the only way they win this game. And right now, this Mojo Master actually is going to put Oregon back in a great spot. Holy moly. See, this is where playing the Mind Control tech last turn would have helped them out quite a bit.
Ah.
Oh my gosh, they're just going to take so much damage on the backswing.
They may just lose because they can't actually do anything that matters in the next 2 turns.
Oh my god, all they could do is play Mind Control tech, hope it contests, or hope to draw something like Rexar.
Well, this sets up for Rexar.
But there's no way Oregon plays into a Mind Control tech.
No, I don't think so
I
either.
think you need to play it.
If you play it and they don't want to run in with the Corpse Taker, maybe they trade over the Mojo Master Zihi and then Rexar clears. And if they don't want to do that, because I think that's objectively wrong to do, then the Corpse Taker probably trades in.
This is not looking good for Kent State. It's crazy how one tech card has changed this matchup that much. And now they're free to play as many minions as they want.
Which means just go wide.
Sure, Consecration, push some damage. Acidic Swamp Ooze, push 11 on top of the 2 from the Consecration. And you get rid of the Candle Shot.
Kent State needs to draw Witchwood Grizzly right now.
Rexar would also save them.
And
That's not it. They're going to
No.
lose. Oh my gosh. Oh, I think this is off of the back of just not playing
Mind Control Tech.
Mind Control Tech the turn they could have.
They are dead. On board. Oregon, with that Mojo Master Zihi at the exact right time, have managed to come back from a 1-2 deficit and actually take advantage of this Death Rattle Hunter. They're moving on to the semifinals, and that means they're moving on to the championship bracket. Congratulations to Oregon. Great run by Kent State. They've made it so far, but unfortunately their run has come to an end. And now University of Oregon, they're so excited to be moving on to the top 4 and moving on to the championship bracket, where they're going to be facing off against the open division teams in a couple of weeks. But also, very importantly, if they win 2 more matches, they will be receiving automatic invites to the Masters Tour Las Vegas event. $250,000 prize pool, something that players, professional Hearthstone players, have been grinding Open Cups nearly nonstop to try and qualify for. With 2 more match wins, these guys are in.
That is absolutely insane. What a crazy game. What a crazy turn of events. It just looked like it was Death Rattle Hunter. It was Death Rattle Hunter's game to lose at that point. And then one tech card, the Mojo Master Zihi, coming at the perfect time. A little, maybe some missequencing from Kent State. Maybe they should have played that Mind Control Tech to contest, knowing that, Oregon had been playing around it the entire game with their plays. So I think maybe it could have been done a little bit differently. Maybe even taking the Prince Keliseth would have changed this matchup just that much more. You never know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
I think taking the Katharina was correct. The only way that you lose that game is Mojo Master Zihi. Even Paladin does not draw cards, so they had to have it at that point. They needed to draw it from like the top 10 cards of their deck, and it just so happened that they did. And you know what? Oregon are the men of the hour, and we have a chance to interview them. Our first team moving on to the semifinals and moving on to the championship bracket to play against the open division teams, so we can now ask them a couple of questions. Congratulations, guys. You are moving on to the semifinals. You're moving on to the championship bracket. Those last few turns of game number 5, where you got the Mojo Master Zihi down at the exact right time to play around the Katharina, which, spoiler alert, they had, were absolutely amazing. Talk to me about what was going on through your head in those last couple of turns of game 5.
Well, personally, we were just thinking that if they have weak turns, they went from the Stitch Tracker to nothing. We knew that the Mojo Master was really strong in that deck specifically, and we knew that if they were holding Katharina, then we basically win the game at that point. So.
Well, you were absolutely correct in that line of thought, and it did end up winning you the game and the series, which means you're moving on to the next stage and you're moving on to the championship bracket. But talk to me about how this tournament has been for you overall. You guys were 10-3 in match record coming into this, which is absolutely impressive. How has this experience been for you guys playing as a team?
Yeah. Well, we participated in the fall tournament as well. We didn't do too hot in that one, so we were a little bit nervous coming into this, especially it being a varsity bracket. We didn't really know how well we'd do. So we just started practicing all the time. 2 of us lived together. He would come over all the time. And it's just really helped us grow together with our friendship. And it's been really nice to compete at a higher level together. And having 2 of your good friends by you is way better than by yourself.
Awesome. I'm glad that you guys have been enjoying it and that this season is going a little bit better for you than the previous one did. But taking a look at some of the information that you provided to us, it seems like you guys all have extensive experience with competitive sports outside of necessarily just esports. But specifically, Samuel, it says that you used to be a competitive snowboarder. How does one get into competitive snowboarding? That is a very foreign concept from where I'm from, which is the Midwest, but maybe a little bit more common in Oregon?
Yeah, there are a lot of good mountains around. We would drive basically like 3 hours every weekend when I was a kid. My mom was nice enough to take me basically every weekend. And it just started from getting lessons to learning how to snowboard to joining a team and then just competing on the weekends. So.
Sick. So you're used to being able to balance education and obligations with sports and with competitive interests, I would say. So that's awesome. It seems like it's really paying off, and you guys have managed to make it through to the semifinals. But final question, you're going to be moving on to play against the winner of our next series, which is George Mason University versus University of Jamestown. Do you guys know anything about either of the teams, and do you have a preference on who you want to play against?
Yeah, so we've been looking at both of them and their lineups because we were able to look at the lineups from the group stage of this bracket. We would prefer to play against the Red Hawks. I think that's George Mason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because our lineup is just favorable overall. I think because they brought Death Rattle Hunter and Clone Priest, so those were the decks that we were trying to counter because we thought that was going to be a very common lineup to bring to this tournament.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you guys will be watching very closely for our next series to see who you're going to be playing against tomorrow. But you're done for the day, so congratulations. Go get some rest. Prepare for your series tomorrow, and we will be seeing you then. Congratulations again, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Cora. Bye.
We've not seen them
No,
on
we've not
stream
seen it yet.
before.
And I'm surprised because they have been doing really well.
Yeah,
They've been doing really well.
10-3 record going into this. Those guys they're enigmatic. They're excited. They seem like they're having a really great time playing together. And looking at the information they give us, it's like competitive ultimate frisbee, competitive soccer, basketball, snowboarding, investing, which I guess is competitive. Gotta get on those investments. These guys just have a ton of experience when it comes to competition.
And I have to mention real quick, nobody at home could see this, but we have the screen to our right, and we can see obviously what's going on. And as soon as the interview was done, they panned it back on us. They had one of the hardest pop-offs I've ever seen from Hearthstone
players.
players.
I wish they would do that on screen.
And I just looked over and I couldn't help but smile because good for those guys. They're excited and they're ready to play their next round.
I wish Hearthstone players weren't so afraid to pop off on camera. Like in the FGC in particular, you see pop-offs every single match. When somebody wins, they let the world know that they won. And in Hearthstone, it's much more subdued, much more, gotta remain in control, gotta look cool for the camera. We want to see you pop off. So if you do win, entertain us a little.
Food for thought.
Food for thought. Congratulations to University of Oregon. We're going to be seeing them tomorrow in our first semifinal match of the day. But now we need to find out who they're going to be playing against. It's going to be the winner of our next series, which is George Mason University and University of Jamestown. And they said that they would rather play against George Mason University, a team that I know you're very familiar with, and they are very familiar with your Open Cup record. Because of the decks that they in particular had brought. They were pitting them on Death Rattle Hunter and on Clone Priest, and we can see that they do have both of those decks.
Yeah, George Mason University is known for playing anti-control, so I'm not surprised from that. So they might have some trouble going into the next round if they do face them, but they got to worry about their first opponent in the University of Jamestown because it looks like they brought a pretty aggressive lineup themselves.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get right into series number 2 and find out who are going to be playing against University of Oregon in our first semifinal tomorrow.